All right, so we realize that we're the last act of the day, and we're the only thing standing between you and a frosty cold beverage.
A happy hour.
So we're going to get started. This is the first time that Ryan and I have ever performed together here, so hopefully it goes well. But I'm Scott Dahlgren. I'm Managing Director at Commerce Guys for North America. And Ryan?
I'm not sure that this thing works. Is this thing on?
Yeah.
It is on? I'll speak loudly. Okay, cool. I'm one of the co-founders of Commerce Guys. From our earliest days, pre-French company thing, and then sort of in charge of managing community stuff, which I'll talk a little bit more about what that means during the session.
Great. So just give you a little background as to who we are. So I always like to start off and say I was a mechanical engineer. I went to Bucknell University. I'm not a developer, but being an engineer maybe gives me just a little bit of credibility in a room full of developers, some respect. And I actually started my career in GE. It's a great way to start out of school, but I quickly realized that working for a big company that had their way of doing business just wasn't right for me. So I quickly moved into sales, spent most of my years in technology, driving channel business, indirect sales, generally system integrators, ISVs, software companies, anything that kept me away from the direct sales world, which drove me crazy. And while I'm new to Commerce Guys, I joined in April. I'm not new to open source, so I've been in open source for about 6 years. I started at Zen Technologies, the PHP company, was there for a year. Left there and started to just do some consulting. Having a channel background, I saw a real opportunity to help open source companies really grow and scale through channels and high value partners and system integrators. And so I worked with another CMS company called Silverstripe. They're out of New Zealand. ModX, they're, I think here in
Not sure.
They're in Texas. I want to say Dallas. And I joined Magento over 4 years ago, way before they had an enterprise product, before they were bought by eBay. Was with them.
Did you say sold out or
sold? No, you said sold out. I did not say that because we're being filmed. But Magento, I was there for over 4 years, and it was a great experience. And I got to see a lot in terms of how an open source company becomes successful, really successful, and some of the things that can go bad. And that led me to this past April at joining Commerce Guys and Drupal Commerce. Ryan.
Yes, I'll introduce myself and then I'll quickly fade into the background because one of us has the business experience to speak to the business summit crowd, and one of us is just kind of a dabbler in open source technology. So I got my start hacking on an OS Commerce install. This was when I was selling restaurant equipment on eBay for a company called Prima Supply. And my boss found out I could program because, though I went to Bible college for my education, I dabbled in indie game development on the side. And when he saw that, he's like, hey, if you know how to do a platform engine, then you can probably manage my e-commerce system for me. This is back when OS Commerce is still storing plain text credit cards and has a horrible database abstraction layer and so on and so forth. But that was my sort of learning ground. So I got to play and experiment and then use that experience to sort of reproduce the OS Commerce experience on Drupal. And that's where UberCart came from on Drupal 5. We actually started developing it in the betas of Drupal 5 and then launched, probably about the time Drupal 6 was coming out with a full 1.0 on Drupal 5. And then continually chased and finally left working for that company to focus full time on Drupal e-commerce software development, joining Commerce Guys as a co-founder, and with my two buddies, Mike and Tim, who were up in Michigan at the time. And we just decided to start going big with e-commerce on Drupal, promoting it at DrupalCon DC was kind of our first big event, if anybody was there, and the various DrupalCons and Drupal camps after that. Eventually led to an opportunity to merge with the Drupal team of AF83, the French company behind DrupalCon Paris. And it was with that company that we founded Drupal Commerce, a complete rewrite of what we had with UberCard on Drupal 7. So again, starting from scratch on the unstable version of Drupal 7. And again, just learning more and more and more and continuing to just grow and learn organically from the community and really kind of a product of that community. And ultimately built a business that has now raised venture capital a couple of times, has sort of started that transition from building services to building products, building networks that are driving the indirect sales and also the affiliate revenue and growing the ecosystem and yada, yada, yada. So I'm learning business organically, even as I'm also learning software development and open source community management and all of that stuff at the same time. So that now I maintain Drupal Commerce. I sort of maintain the community along with Josh Miller. But then I also get to advocate on behalf of the community within Commerce Guys as someone who's a fly on the wall for all of the business decisions and business debates and topics and all that. I get to bring the community aspect to the table and really have been empowered at the highest levels of our company to speak on behalf of what is in the best interest of the Drupal community and how is what we're doing as a company meshing with our community's values because, again, Commerce Guys grew up out of this community. And then I also bring the Amish online. I eat my own dog food and use Drupal Commerce to sell Amish-made raw milk organic cheese. It's so good at realmilkcheese.com. That's nice. Okay. No more commercial. I'm done. I'll let Scott take it from there.
And their order management system is this. He gets an order and then he goes, hello, you need to ship.
His name is actually Amos. Hey,
Amos.
We need to ship.
Well, he doesn't even have a phone, right?
Yeah, no, it's in the barn.
All right, in the barn. Anyway, Commerce Guys,
I mean, he actually has an email address now, and it's our fault.
So we just celebrated our third year as a company, joining Commerce Guys with AF83. We're a French-American company, so we're up to about 55 people, 30 in Paris, about 20 here in the U.S. and 5 in the U.K. And we are VC-backed, 3 investors out of Europe. So the second most common question they get asked is, why did I join Commerce Guys? And, you know, I'm a newbie here. I appreciate being led into the Drupal club here. I'm just a little concerned about the initiation rites that I'm told I have to go through. But anyway, I think it's worth it. But it's always nice, you know, to get an outsider's perspective as to what's great about this and the opportunity that I saw. And so, you know, the first is, you know, I think the Drupal community is probably the most successful, mature, organized open source project today. And it competes and wins against some of the biggest commercial, you know, proprietary solutions out there. I mean, Adobe must be scratching their head going, how can, you know, I mean, how are we losing against these guys? But they are. There's massive innovation and community involvement. It's amazing in the Drupal world because this evaporates often with open source projects, but it's remained in the Drupal world, this massive innovation and involvement that frankly no company can compete with at all. And that creates an advantage. Drupal Commerce is one of the most powerful e-commerce platforms that nobody knows about, except for maybe the Drupal world. And I looked at the fact that there's close to 1 million, maybe more, Drupal users who all chose Drupal for the rich web experience that it gives. And I asked myself, how many have commerce needs? Well, probably a lot. And there's just lots of low-hanging fruit there. And then finally, you know, I've been in the commerce world for a while, and I see the future of commerce changing. It's really changing towards content-driven commerce. And if you really believe that content, a rich content experience and engaging community environment is really what's going to be driving transactions in the future, there's no other solution out there today than Drupal that can deliver on that goal. Now, I think that message still needs to get out there. We're really working with partners today to talk about the importance of that. And I think intuitively, everyone here, we're all consumers. We all buy stuff. We all get the fact that sometimes I know what I want. I go to a site and I find it and buy it, and that's it. But much of the time, that's not the way I make my buying decisions. And so I think everyone intuitively gets that. Putting it into real hard examples is a challenge, but one that we know trending-wise, the market's moving in this direction.
For me, it was grilling forks. I'm trying to learn how to grill meat now that I'm 30. And I just didn't know what kind of a grilling thermometer I should have to be able to tell if my meat was nice and medium rare. And so I tried the reviews at Amazon and Lowe's and wherever else, and Bed Bath and Beyond. But I mean, like reviews are almost like so used nowadays that they're unhelpful, because there's like 100 5-star and 100 1-star for every single thermometer. And ultimately, it was finding a content site that was oriented around grilling and how to get the best meat and all that. That's like, hey, get this brand and this and whatever else. That, and then I also texted like 3 friends. So yeah, very social and content driven.
Nice. So the most common question that I get asked, and the one that we're going to talk about today, is how the hell do you make money in open source? I think the real question that Ryan and I are going to delve into a little bit is, how do you make money without sacrificing the open source values? How do you maintain that balance? And in fact, if you can maintain that balance, is financial gain actually enhanced? We believe that it can be. But it's really a balancing act. On one side, you have Ryan.
A halo.
Huh?
I'm just
yeah,
pointing out my halo, that's all.
Exactly. Well, you did go to Bible school.
That's
so
right.
I think you've earned it.
Came with a degree.
So Ryan representing open source values with the halo. Me, I should probably have devil horns on, representing the make money side of things. At one point in my life, I did have hair as long as Ryan, but it's another story. So Ryan, take it away on open source values.
Yeah, so where we're coming from, or what are the values that we're sort of talking about in an open source community? And I don't know, like here at Web Leadership Day, who actually works with open source technology on a day-to-day basis? Is that a majority? I guess not everyone, which is cool, because that gives me the opportunity to at least maybe bring something new to the table. For everybody else, I'll go really fast. But the idea here, whenever we think about open source software, the sort of key word is freedom. In fact, the GPL has been redefined, I guess, as promoting free as in freedom. I think it used to be free as in beer or as in speech, but now they went like super meta and just say that we're free as in freedom. So it's all about the freedom of choice and technology and thought control and influence and whatever. Like, you have the freedom to do what you want with your technology, including repackage it, redistribute it, and sell it as your own if you want to. The only thing you aren't free to do is inhibit the freedom of everyone else who's using the software, which is great. So then we also have flexibility, and this isn't something that's monopolized by the open source community, but we do, or at least within the Drupal community, are known for our flexibility. And in building Drupal Commerce, we've sort of adopted the tagline that we're building or empowering truly flexible e-commerce. Because everybody brings something different to the table, and especially in the Drupal world, we're all building so many different kinds of websites, the thing that's proven to work best for us as a community is to have a kernel or a core of Drupal that's adaptable to many different scenarios, and then sort of build these contributed modules that themselves are inherently flexible, like views and rules, and these modules that are meant to be extended and built onto. That's sort of become a hallmark, at least of our open source community, and it's something that we value as a company. There's also control, and when it comes to your future and product roadmap and all that stuff and adaptation, Drupal is really known for having a module for that as soon as a new web service or API launches. And that's proven true to me many times over. I think it was thanks to Rob Loach. There was this period of time where a new service would come out and like, I wonder if there's a Drupal module for that. And I went and searched D.O, and Rob did it like a week after it launched or something. And Discuss, the commenting system is one that sticks out in my mind as something he really jumped on ASAP. and we all get to take advantage of that. Then there's also empowerment, which has been really key in the Drupal community. If you look at folks like Angie Byron, who's now one of the toppest specialist people in our community. She's a Drupal 8 core maintainer, was the Drupal 7 core maintainer along with Dries, works in the office of the CTO at Acquia now, and she is a person that was empowered by the community to take ownership of things, and then through her own sweat equity and time invested, really become one of the most influential people in the community from being just a lowly Google Summer of Code student, if I remember her story right. And so across the board in the community, we're empowering individuals to become contributors to the project, and then ultimately see their work used on the thousands and hundreds of thousands of websites around the world. And then last is we do sort of value this co-opetition, which is the idea that as competitors, we're all still cooperating around this one core software, building into that so it becomes better for everyone, but then still competing for projects right alongside one another. And that's kind of evidenced by the fact that I'm wearing a Pantheon shirt, and Commerce Guys is launching its own hosting platform, and then I also have an Acquia bracelet that I like to wear as well. So yes, we are all competitors, but we're all cooperating to kind of grow the pie for everyone at this point in time. We haven't yet hit that point with Drupal where there's just no more work coming in, and everybody just has nothing to do with their time. So we value a lot of these things, but you can end up in an out of balance situation or scenario when you focus on all of the collaboration and adaptation and pie in the sky dreams of freedom and et cetera, without really focusing on the things that matter to businesses that actually would invest in your software so that you can continue to maintain it and develop it and grow it. So when it comes time to actually convert a new customer from their proprietary e-commerce system to Drupal Commerce, we need to be able to prove to them that we actually think about the future and have a roadmap that at least shows that we're thinking in some direction without waiting for their stuff to break or not work. And even if we have a roadmap that's published, it's something that they can influence and take ownership of themselves. They need assurance of success. They need to know that there's somebody with a phone somewhere that's going to answer their support request when their site goes down. And yes, all of these things that just come with actually having to make money on a platform that somebody else is developing, perhaps for altruistic reasons even. So what we want to avoid is an out-of-balance scenario where we focus too much on the just sort of free, give everything away, we want everyone to be happy and have their problems met aspect of open source software, without then also making the money we need to earn as a business to support the people that are maintaining the software and finding new projects and finding new ways to grow the platform as a whole. So I'm going to let Scott take over and talk about how we actually can make money with the software and then balance that against our values.
So, sometimes, we're all made to feel that it's a bad thing to make money. I think everyone in this room, is here to make money, and it's sort of intuitive and obvious. But you still walk around Drupal Con, and sometimes you feel like you're getting scolded a little bit. But, again, stating the obvious, ecosystem surrounding any open source project is there. It evolves because of the opportunity to make money. I saw that at Magento. I see that here. And that's a good thing. And it's actually vital for long-term success and sustainability. If there's not an opportunity to make money, people are going to go somewhere else. And then you've got a failed project. The interesting part about open source is it's not driven by owning the IP, but it's really about something deeper and at a core level. And it's really about adding true value to a customer. And it can't come at the expense of sacrificing open source values. And really driven by the opportunity for all. So it's all inclusive, and it's really focused around meeting business needs. So let's just look at the ecosystem here. So at the beginning, there's an open source project. It's got to be good. It's got to be solid. And if it is, it starts to get embraced by developers in the community who start using it. and saying, wow, this is great, and telling their friends and introducing it to early adopter customers. That begins to attract larger integrators, agencies that are focused on bigger customers as well. And they're there because of the opportunity to make money. That ecosystem begins to grow, and you start seeing more complementary software solutions, not just add-ons or extensions, but real companies who are building their own commercial apps that want to integrate in with that project, and they're there because of the opportunity to make money. And of course, they're all feeding customers, and customers are buying the technology so that they can make money. And so this whole environment is fueled by the opportunity to make money. And as you move closer into the center, there's more control, more influence on the direction, but also as you move out, there's a greater opportunity to make money. And again, this is vital. It's dollars that fuel the ecosystem, and it's absolutely critical if any open source project is going to be sustainable for a long period of time. So then what happens is you get a company in the middle, somebody at the core, company at the core, I call it. And that's actually a really good thing. So a company at the core is absolutely vital because, one, they're the stewards of that project, moving everything forward. If you don't have that, a project can easily splinter into different directions, and if you've got it going in different directions, you're probably not going to be successful. So Zen did that for PHP, Magento obviously for Magento, and Commerce guys obviously trying to do that for Drupal Commerce. Those companies at the core, they invest in the technology. They create that roadmap that's so important for bigger and bigger companies to adopt. They work with, and we're working with, lots of complementary solutions and encouraging them and even helping them integrate with Drupal Commerce so that it becomes an even richer solution for everybody. And it really helps legitimize the solution, providing the support and assurance that big companies need in order to place a bet and make a decision to go with the software. Now, what tends to happen, and the risk here, is that the company at the core wants both the control and they want to make a ton of money. And the need to make money becomes, they become too absorbed in that. And that creates another out of balance situation. And I saw this picture here of Jerry Maguire showing, "Show me the money," and I just thought it was perfect because that's really what they become. I've been a part of those companies where all they care about is the money because they've got to drive the revenue. The pressures at the top, whether they be investors or a big company, are too great. And they do that at the expense of the community that got them there in the first place. And so the need to make money erodes their open source values. And what they begin to do is a lot of unnatural things, unnatural in the open source world. So they begin to try to exert power and control over the whole ecosystem, telling the ecosystem what they can and can't do. They tend to inhibit innovation. The driving force in open source, they inhibit innovation and competition. They look at competition not in the way Ryan talked about, which is co-opetition, which just says, hey, you may be a competitor, bring it on, because we will all make each other great, and a rising sea floats all ships. But the company at the core many times is too threatened by the competition and tries to inhibit that. They limit choice. If you, I've seen numerous surveys in my years in the open source world that ask customers, why did they select Magento, for instance? And the number one answer is openness and flexibility. They can control their future, and they have a say in the direction that they take. That is the most important thing. And unfortunately, the company at the center sometimes tries to limit that choice, which is, again, begins to erode those open source values. They forget the community, and there really becomes a kind of an unhealthy dependency, at least they want that to happen, an unhealthy dependency on a part of the ecosystem. And when there's an unhealthy dependency on one part of the ecosystem, it's not a healthy environment. So we're going to move into a couple of examples here. Ryan's going to take the first one. Just talking a little bit about the formation of Commerce Guys. He was there at the beginning, and
I got to eat a lot of French food and
foie gras.
Yeah, I don't eat a lot of that. It's kind of so for Commerce Guys, as Scott explained, we're a company that's sort of devoted to making an open source project, Drupal Commerce, the #1 e-commerce platform in the world. But one of our founding assumptions in doing this is saying that it's our community that makes the software great, and certainly doubly so because Drupal Commerce itself is not a standalone project. It's a sort of contributed project of the larger Drupal ecosystem. So it's doubly so true for us that our business will be more valuable the more closely aligned we are with the Drupal community. Because we have a very they're much bigger, but it's like this codependent relationship where Drupal needs to do commerce to grow, and Drupal Commerce couldn't exist without Drupal. So we sort of started the business with that assumption that we will be more valuable as a business the more closely aligned we were with these values that I've mentioned earlier, the freedom, flexibility, empowerment, all those things. And so we sort of started Commerce Guys, even knowing we were going to seek to raise venture capital with this assumption, and then empowered me as one of the co-founders and manager of community or whatever to champion this principle at any level. So whether I'm at a board meeting, because I happen to be there, I don't normally try to go to those things, or just on a management call or a product roadmap call or whatever, I know that I have the freedom to speak my mind whenever any marketing plan or sales strategy or product roadmap contradicts how the Drupal community operates. And it's actually really easy because two of my other 3 partners were themselves Drupal contributors, Damien Tornude and Mike O'Connor, and then our CEO kind of gets it as well. So we don't really have to fight. It's kind of that safeguard. I'm the canary there that says, hey, by the way, what you're talking about is not going to fly here. That would really poison the well and maybe sour our relationship with the community. I've been empowered to do that, and then we've also educated our sales teams and our partnership teams to know how to seek those opportunities that are actually going to directly feed into what we're trying to develop with the community. So at the core of Drupal Commerce, and then in our various contributed modules, whether it's the shipping framework or the discount framework or payment gateways, whatever it is that we're selling or partnering with, it's all designed to kind of feed into this one pot where we know that there are features that are being asked after, and as soon as it's been integrated once, nobody else will ever have to integrate it again. So let's try and sell those projects that will get us the most return on our investment with the community. So PayPal, for example, is a really good high priority partner. We know doing e-commerce that you have to have PayPal integration or you just won't even be considered as a solution for thousands and thousands of merchants. And it's not the merchant's desire necessarily, it's a customer-centric thing that's worked out really well for PayPal. But we prioritize that relationship from a partnership standpoint. So we wanted to bring PayPal to the table. And then if you were at DrupalCon Portland and came by our booth, you would have actually seen PayPal there at our booth presenting alongside of us, along with 5 other marketplace partners, because our sales team knew how to bring them to the community and begin to educate them on how the Drupal community operates and how we intend to write and contribute and maintain their integration within the community. So it's been really good and really beneficial for us throughout our business. In fact, the marketplace strategy of finding those integrators that are high value to our community and then getting them to invest in the integration work has actually been very lucrative for us as an open source business, because these people have marketing budgets and integration budgets that they're paying out to integrators and shopping cart solution providers and so on. And so why don't we focus on getting that money to then build into the software that is then given back for free to the community, and so on and so forth. It's all very, very nice. Then last but not least, of course, is involving all of our team members in contributing to our projects. So whatever your project is, making it known that this is encouraged and rewarded is, it seems like it's a no-brainer, but you do have to be intentional about it. So we have to intentionally set aside Fridays, for example, in our office in Paris, to make sure that our team members aren't just contributing to the code when they're on the PS clock. Even though we developed the entity reference module, which is now part of Drupal 8 for one of our clients in Paris, even though the team that was working on that knew that they were sort of contributing back to the open source project, it was still, in a sense, like, I don't want to use too much hyperbole here, if that's possible, but it was like soul draining or life crushing. When you're on that you have that deadline and you're working with a team that doesn't really know Drupal, trying to educate them while you're also trying to architect these modules that are going to drive their business forward. Like it's different when you're doing it as a labor of love versus because if you don't do it, then you don't get paid that week. So anyways, on and off the clock, our guys are involved in contributing to Drupal Commerce, to Drupal Core, and they know that we value that and we reward them for that within the company. So one example would be this project. We flew all of those guys from our Paris team to DrupalCon Denver because they needed a break after this year-long project that resulted in a lot of code contributed back to the community, but it also resulted in a lot of stress for that team because it was a very stressful environment for them. So this, all of these things, all of these like assumptions and principles that we've put in place would mean nothing if the people that we're asking for money aren't on board, because they could say, well, we've given you now $5 million, and we don't like what you're doing with your community because it's not valuable enough or something. Like they come to the table with their own set of assumptions. They want to know how you're going to turn their money into more money, basically. And so you can really back yourself into a hole if you bring the wrong people on board, because when you're looking for investors, you're courting, you're dating, you're trying to find someone with that match. And I can't remember the guy's name that was up here before me, but what he said about DISC with respect to your founders and your management team, like that applies to who you bring onto your board through your investors as well. Like, what kind of person are you attracting, and do you even know that you could attract someone that thinks the same way that you do? And the answer is yes, you actually can find investors that understand the relationship of an open source business to your community. And so that's exactly what we were able to find, first of all, through our seed round with ISAI, a French entrepreneurs fund made of people that had done their own startups and worked in community and sort of trusted us to manage our relationship with our community in such a way that it benefited the business in the long term. But then when we raised our Series A, we actually got OpenOcean on board, which is the sort of, I call it the fund started with Oracle money. So whenever MySQL sold to Oracle, those guys all became filthy rich. And one of the things they did with their money was start a fund that's devoted to investing in open source businesses. And so I have their mission statement on the screen. I'll read it for the folks in the back. They actually want to help software entrepreneurs like Commerce guys or like other Drupal startups, perhaps, with their hands-on advice and financing to build an open source business based on their experience and knowledge in building and managing like a community-oriented open source business. So like they're bringing to the table their experience with MySQL and other open source businesses. And when they actually did their due diligence, we had to explain to them how we manage our issue queue. How do you manage support? Do you have an IRC channel? Okay, what does that look like? And they actually wanted to know some of those metrics for like what is your level of community engagement, and how are you as a business responsibly maintaining that community? So they actually are challenging us to do better. And that created this semi-awkward scenario where we had this issue kind of bouncing around in the issue queue for a while. That literally like a week before this phone call, somebody changed it to a critical bug report. But this thing is like a year old. And so I'm pretty sure it was Monty from MySQL. He asked us on the phone call, hey, why do you have this like critical bug report that's over a year old sitting there in your issue queue? And of course, it'd be like at the top of the page because it just got recategorized. And that one happened to be a support request that, we're in the Drupal community. We can't really control what happens in the queue. But we got called on it, and that was a good sign for us that they're actually interested in how we are responsibly maintaining our community project. Because it's not just like a thing that we do as a sales strategy. Like, oh yeah, we have the community open source edition, which we can take another shot at Magento here since Scott's not at the mic. But it's not just a sales strategy to then sell enterprise edition licenses. Like, this actually is our product. It is the lifeblood of our business and what's going to make us more valuable long term. So they want to make sure that we are treating that well. So you can do the same thing. And then as far as thinking about other open source values, in our business, we have dedicated team members to making sure that our projects don't just flounder. You can't just put code out there and then expect the community to maintain it. It's a nice idea that there will just be this army of contributors that got your back, but it doesn't really happen that way. And the more code that you write, the more time you have to dedicate to maintenance. And so we actually have this issue right now within our product development team where we've integrated a dozen different services. But the teams that are doing the integrations are moving on to the next integration. And the question is, well, who's going to maintain this? Because those issue queues are still going to get support requests and bug reports and feature requests. Who's actually going to be watching over that? So that's where my kind of R&D team within the company comes into play, where I have myself and Josh and hopefully a developer in the near future to just manage the maintenance and long-term support of our issue queues and our DrupalCommerce.org and our Stack Exchange involvement and all that kind of stuff. So you really need to dedicate team members to that. Then you also have to dedicate team members to making the case for your product within the community, because when you're developing in community, you're developing with the people that are basically teaching you stuff. They're a lot smarter than you are, and if they aren't convinced of your solution, then they will go look elsewhere, and that's why perhaps we still get modules like the Magento integration module. So there are people that are trying to integrate Drupal with Magento. It's because whoever did that integration wasn't convinced that Drupal Commerce was going to meet their needs yet. So you really have to be making that case. And of course, in the community, talk is silver, code is gold. So the best way to make the case is to put enough resources on the project to make sure it launches and competes in the first place. But then you also want to dedicate team members to make the case for your community within your business. So the inverse relationship, and that's where I come into play. And we do have other people in the community or in the company that also have some of the same knee-jerk reactions. For example, to putting double-click for publishers inside of Commerce Kickstart. There's that knee-jerk reaction. Why are we doing this? Is this the best way to meet the business need that you've identified without working against how the community is going to perceive these things? So it's not just me. I'm probably the person with the most freedom to speak my mind. But as a company, like, our culture is such that we want to challenge roadmaps and sales strategies and marketing materials to make sure that we aren't saying something that we don't really as a company believe. And I say that as a company because most of our company are Drupal contributors, and then we have folks that aren't necessarily, that are maybe doing more of the admin, sales, marketing, etc. stuff. So, and last but not least is just to talk about what you're doing and react to where the community is going. So we aren't just developing Drupal Commerce in a vacuum, but we do try to really intentionally engage the community and let that drive even how we think about our products and what we put into the marketplace, for example, or how we develop platform and all that stuff. So that's our example with Commerce Guys. I'll let Scott take it from here, but if there are questions about the formation of Commerce Guys, how being a venture-backed company has changed things or whatever, feel free to ask them after the fact.
So we're going to do one other example, and this is the new Drupal Commerce Delivery Partner Program. So what's vital usually with any open source project is a very vibrant and valuable integrator channel. Someone who's going to be able to represent and sell and create awareness anywhere around the world, and then deliver that solution effectively. It's just not possible for the core company to build or to scale of the size necessary to have a sales or delivery channel. It's just not the model. And so that's what I did at Magento. I came in to really build that channel for them. When I came over to Commerce Guys, this was one of my highest priorities because I knew how important it was and is. And we really, focused on 3 key things. So we start at the beginning and say, look, our goal here, one is not as a service company. So back to the previous presentation, you're either a web shop or you're doing products. It's hard to be one or the other. So one, we made a conscious decision that we're products. We're not services. So that means we don't compete with the Drupal shops, the integrators, the agencies that do that for a living and do that better than we ever could. Our role here is to really help them build strong and lucrative e-commerce businesses. E-commerce is complex. It's hard. Most companies need help, and we're the guys who built Drupal Commerce, and we've got lots of experts, and really our role is to help enable them to build their own business. And we don't see that as a codependency all the time. It's something that we want to be transferring our skills and knowledge to them, because ultimately we want them to be out there driving further adoption of Drupal Commerce. And which goes into a key goal of ours, which is to invest in and support in enabling that ecosystem. And it's all to drive successful adoption delivery of Drupal Commerce. You can win a project, but if you don't deliver it successfully and have standards around quality, then you're going to fail. So these were kind of the core objectives. We looked at, what is a partnership? These are all nice things. It's, they mirror what, the open source values are. They're real, but often not given much credence in the real world when it comes time to building a partner channel. So as we were putting this in place very quickly, pre-Portland, we asked ourselves, why not take an open source approach to creating a partner program? And really, why not apply the fundamentals that make an open source software great to various aspects of our business? And it took us a while to wrap our heads around that. We talked to a lot of partners that were out there, and at first they kind of looked at us and, that makes no sense. But as you talk through it a little further, it made a lot of sense. And if you look at a typical program, partner program, the core company, they spend lots of time and effort creating programs and processes and everything that is focused on their needs. And then they launch it out and they throw it out to partners and they say, what do you think you want to join? And the partner kind of says, well, I don't know, it doesn't look so good for me. And we thought we'd take a different approach and really not call it, and this is on purpose, it's not the Commerce Guys partner program, it's the Drupal Commerce partner program. Because Drupal Commerce is the community, and that community has many stakeholders, us being one of them, delivery partners, who is what we call system integrators, agencies, the guys that are implementing Drupal, has a lot of stakeholders, and they all have a say. And we believe that together, just like a community can create a great solution like Drupal, it can create a great partner program that serves the needs of everybody. So we took a bit of a risk, but in the end, I don't think we felt like it was that risky. And we thought about what makes an open source partnership better. And again, this mirrors open source fundamentals, but just being open and transparent with partners ultimately allows you to make better decisions, and it ultimately helps you meet business needs better. everyone wants to be included. So the ability for everyone to contribute and influence the direction, I mean, that's core to open source, and that brings out the best in people. And that drives better ideas, ultimately a better partner program, and ultimately grows the market and rises the sea. And there's really a strength in numbers. And so we essentially felt that it was the right way to go. We launched this at DrupalCon, and the first tenet is that all are welcome, to leverage us to help grow their commerce business. And we really looked at kind of the open source model, and we said, look, there's going to be a whole bunch of people that want to be participants. And they're going to be aware of Drupal Commerce, and they're going to be opportunistic in their use. And then there's going to be a more inner circle of contributors. They're going to have a little greater interest, and they're considering a closer relationship but not quite sure. And then you've got the guys in the middle we'll call core contributors, and these are the partners. These are the Drupal shops that are out there that say, commerce is strategic to my business. I need to grow next year. There's a lot of competition in what I'm doing now. Commerce is wide open. People are spending money. It's mission critical. And so that's how we're beginning to segment the partners. And so when we look at core contributor characteristics, it's not about skills and competency. It may be in the future, but that's not our decision to make. It's really about, is commerce strategic to your business? Are you committed to working with your commerce guys? And how much are you willing to invest? And so we're going to be launching either today or maybe Monday this collaborative site. So it's the Drupal Commerce Delivery Partner Portal. And it's a collaborative site built on Commons. And what we're doing is rolling out key program elements to get feedback from the ecosystem of stakeholders. And some of the biggest things are, for instance, how we're going to be promoting partners. What are the criteria on which one partner gets promoted over the other? How do we maintain quality, and how do we self-govern ourselves to do that? These are all really tough decisions that can be better addressed if done within the community and by all the key stakeholders. So, this is we took an idea, kind of tested it out, made sense, and we launched it, and we'll continue to provide updates to see how it's going. So, Ryan, we've got like 4 minutes left, our last slide. So our contention here is that financial gain is enhanced by keeping the balance. I'll just run through these here, not to belabor the point here, but pretty much what we talked about. Try to incorporate open source values into your business. It helps you stay true to the mission here. Investing in, supporting the community. Don't forget, the community that got you there can also take you down.
It's very dark.
Yeah.
Community hits.
The idea of opportunity for all is really great, but it can't be a free-for-all. And so, it also needs to be governed not by, some company who's making all the rules, but by the community that's kind of self-governing itself. One of the things that I think the Drupal community does really well. Create a culture that just empowers people to be great and drives innovation. And don't take choice away. That's what customers value the most. You take it away, they'll go somewhere else. Focus on enabling the ecosystem. The ecosystem is this huge mass that is hard to control, so don't try to control it. Just work with it, enable it, try to add as much value as you can, and there'll be a return for you. Quality, that's something that hits most open source projects, certainly hit Magento. We're not immune from it as well, but that's got to be prioritized along with customer success, because you got to protect the brand. Ensure that what you sell is good for everybody, the ecosystem, not just yourself. It may be a great idea to us, but if no one will buy it, if no one will use our services or our support, then it's of no good. We're wasting our time. Embrace competition. That's something that's fun. Everyone loves competition, and it's not always a threat. We help make each other better, and making each other better helps grow the market, which is good for all of us. And finally, what we're trying to do with our partner program is collaborate around maybe sensitive topics and hard issues rather than trying to mandate. You mandate, people are going to say, you can have the greatest idea, but if you mandate it, you're not going to get the kind of support you would if someone was involved in that decision. So in summary, Ryan and I came up with a logo we thought encapsulated our entire message here.
It works.
Which was, first, thank you for being with us at the very end of the day, and finally, I love open source with a dollar sign there. So thank you very much. I think we have any minutes, any questions? I know it's late in the day. Yeah. Yes.
Wait.
No.
You're talking about specifically like funds investing in open source businesses in general, Europe versus North America?
No, I don't. I mean, I think that there are similar funds and VCs that will invest in open source. I mean, you look at Acquia, for instance, and they've got some major backers. Mm-hmm. I think our situation was simply because, our worldwide headquarters was in Paris, and so those were where the connections were. As we look towards the next round of funds, it will be in the U.S., and there's plenty of interest in the U.S. Any other questions? Yeah.
I don't think so. So the question was about the 3 C's converging. I used another C word for that. So content, commerce, and community. Does Drupal Commons work with Drupal Commerce kind of thing? And yeah, I think that Drupal Commons is social enterprise software. It's designed to be your big intranet or whatever. It's not really designed to be a public-facing product marketing website, as far as I understand it. Certainly, where we throw our weight behind Commerce, Kickstart is a distribution. You can't really merge 2 distros. You could put Commerce on there, but nobody's at least talked to us that's done it. Nothing would stop you from doing it if it solved a lot of your other issues. Perhaps, maybe for like a marketplace or a multi-seller scenario, it might actually make sense to use Commons as the foundation and add Commerce to it. But, yeah. All right, I'll let somebody else come wrap this up. You want to hot mic, Cece?
Thanks, everyone.